Okay, hi. My name is Dave Metz. I'm going to share my screen with you in a second. Hopefully, can you guys see that? It's my home screen. Okay. I guess I can't hear you because you're all muted, but
Yeah.
we're gonna answer questions today. It's the way this is going down. There are three of us are going to talk about our alignment tool here, our touch screen, and the way we're going to do it, we're going to have each of us take one of the pages, and we generally go through dimensions, measure, and results. So I'm going to take the dimensions page, but we have a few questions. I'm just going to go down them. The first question had to do with firmware updates, and people often ask how to perform the firmware update, where can I get it, that kind of thing. The firmware update is now located on the website. Okay, now for a little while it wasn't on the website. It is back on our PRUFTECHNIK.com website. You can always call us and have us send you the link to the update. It's not that hard to do. It's important to know that on the website is located under the ROTALIGN only, and if you're updating an OPTALIGN, you will need to find it under ROTALIGN because it's the same tool. Okay, so if you just go to ROTALIGN on the website, go down to firmware update, and you can find it there. The way it's done, it's not that hard. You simply download the update from the website or the link that we gave you, and then we give you a USB stick with your ROTALIGN, and it's best to use the PRUFTECHNIK USB stick because we know that one works. Others might work, but you're going to want to use the one we sent you. Okay. You download the firmware onto your computer. Okay, you cannot drag and drop it from the website. You need to download it to your computer. On the USB stick, you make a folder called Touch. And I use small letters, T-O-U-C-H, name the folder Touch, and you drag and drop it into the firmware into the Touch folder that you just made. You put the USB stick into the Touch, and then you turn it on. Okay. It's very simple. It'll prompt you through it. It takes a few minutes. It's also important to know that if you have the ARC software, Alignment Reliability Center computer software, you will need to update that as well because they will not communicate to each other if you don't. Okay. The other one thing to note is if you want to have, anytime you send your unit in for calibration, it will be updated. So it's a good idea to get your calibrations done on a regular basis, keep up with your calibrations, and your unit will always be updated. If you want to update it by yourself, it's not that hard to do. You can always call us, have you send you a link, or get the firmware from our website. Okay. So that explains the firmware update. It's kind of simple. It's on the website. You should go to the website once in a while anyway. All right. So the first question I got, right, was about onboard help function. Now, if you can see my screen here, and if you can see my little arrow, there's a question mark in the lower left-hand corner. Okay. And if you simply touch the question mark, it will bring you to our online screen help. Okay. We don't send you a booklet anymore. There used to be in years of past, it'd be this big thick booklet in the back of the box, and it got all greasy and fell apart. But now the entire manual is located right inside this help function. You simply go to the home screen, touch the question mark, and this comes up. Now it's very searchable. Okay. You can go up here to the right-hand side where there's what this is a magnifying glass. If you touch the magnifying glass, it will give you a keyword search option. Okay, so very useful. Anything you might want to search for questions you have are in the manual, and that's the place to find it. Okay. So remember, it's down here in the lower left-hand corner. That's where the manual is. We don't send you one, but there is one loaded onto your USB stick when you buy the new unit. You're welcome to print it yourself and carry it around, but I prefer to just use it right out of the box here. Okay. So the onboard help function is easy to use. The next question I had was about adding multiple feet. So we're going to go into what we call the dimensions page simply by touching horizontal alignment. Okay. Now, if you are normal users, you probably have a lot of experience putting in dimensions. Very simple. Okay. The dimensions go in. Now, if you want to add multiple feet, you simply touch with the machine you want to put multiple feet on. Okay, and this page comes up, and down in the lower right-hand corner, there's a button called multiple feet. Now, this is put here on the dimensions page so that you can put the multiple feet in while you're doing your setup. There is another way to get to the multiple feet, and it's from the results page. And when you get to the results page, if you touch the machine, this page will show up as well. Now, it's important to know that if this doesn't have the multiple feet option on the dimension screen, you are not using the newest firmware. This is a newer firmware update add-on. Okay. The multiple feet button that's right here will not show up if you don't have the newest firmware. Oh, and I'm awful sorry, but if you want to check what firmware you have, if you go back to the home screen and you go down here to configuration, okay, and you go to the about button, which is here, there's the firmware. The latest firmware right now is 2.1. That's the firmware version that is the newest. You're going to want to check and see if it's 2.1. Okay, if you have an older one, you can go through the update process or send it in for recalibration and we will do it for you. Okay. Anyway, there are two ways to get there. One is by touching this machine, seeing the multiple feet button here, and you add the multiple feet and it asks for the dimension from the first foot to the second, and then when you get to the next one, it'll be from the first foot to the third, not from the second to the third. Okay. It's easy to do. The results on the results page will still only show 2 feet, the front and the back foot. After you make your shim corrections, all you really need is the front and the back foot to perform your side move anyway, so it simplifies things. You'll get all the results on this page. Okay. Adding multiple feet is super easy to do. Okay. So the next question I had was about fixing feet. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about this little corner screen up here, and it's called the Machine Train Manager. And if you simply touch the Machine Train Manager, okay, there's a section here called Trains Fixation, okay, and you get to this screen, and if the pump doesn't have any feet under it, if you simply touch the pump here, this shows up, and somebody had asked why these arrows were red. And the arrows or triangles, whatever you want to call them, are red because the dimensions have not yet been entered. So when you go back to the screen, you'll notice that now there are more dimensions to add. And when you add them, okay, and you go back to the Machine Train Manager, you will have all the dimensions. Was one here. Notice they were red and I didn't finish. Back to the Machine Train Manager. Now they're black. Okay. So the reason they're red is because the information isn't all added. Now that they're black, you can fix the feet from here. In other words, if you select a foot, it will unfix and fix. The black means the foot is fixed. You can fix any two. Like from here, you can fix both motor feet or one and not the other. This can also be done from the results page. Notice the feet are fixed when they're black and filled in, and you can fix or unfix them from the results page. Super handy when you come to a bolt down situation. Okay, fixing the feet, but you need to add the dimensions. All right. Important to know that if you're on the results screen and you touch one of those feet, it will bring you directly to our Machine Train Manager. Okay, so it's pretty easy to do. Super handy when you're stuck, and I've used it quite often. All right. All right. Now the next question I had was about setting up Machine Train. Okay. Now again, we're going to go back to the Machine Train Manager simply by touching this guy up here. Okay. And up in the middle where it says Train Setup, this is where you would add a machine. So if you simply put a plus, you could add the machine to either side. Again, you're going to want, it's not going to look like this more than likely, so you're going to turn this into whatever your machine train looks like. And typically you might see something like this, a gearbox between motor and pump. Okay. we also have the ability to do, well, when you get back to this, you need to add all your dimensions. Okay, there's two ways to zoom out. If I simply touch the dimension screen again, it will zoom out, right? But if I go back up to this machine train manager, if I get into a really large machine train, and I go up over here to where it says train manager, I can decide how much of the picture I would like to look at. Okay, so that's a simple way to zoom in on the picture. Okay. All right, so adding machines is very simple. If you look at this picture, you can see that these guys are solid and these guys are not. That's because we haven't been set up to do multi-coupling measurement. We can do that simply by going back to the home screen and selecting multi-coupling. And I think our friend Tim is going to talk a little bit about multi-coupling measurement. So that's a super handy feature for the real world. I'm going to get out of this just to get back to what I'm going to show you in a second. Come on now. Where's my motor? It's in there. All right, so we got a lot of motors. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm going to trash this guy, get back to the beginning. All right, so adding a machine is very simple for machine train alignment. The other guys will get into the actual measurement process. The next thing we want to talk about, okay, is live trend. So I got a question about when to use live trend, okay, and I'm going to go back to the home screen just to show you where live trend is. We're not going to get too far into it. We might have to do another webinar on live trend, but the reason to use live trend would be if no thermal growth values exist and you really want to know what the actual movement data is. Okay, so it's a super handy feature. It gets you right to where the running condition is. People are doing more and more of this and getting much better running machines. Just to have you know, you mount the heads on both machines and you watch them move as you know the machine runs and goes through its cycles. Okay. After you get thermal growth, let's say targets or movement, and you want to know how to set up your alignment process, there are two ways to do that. One of them would be through the use of targets, okay, and the other would be through thermal growth at the feet. Now, in order to get to targets, if you simply touch the coupling here, I'm going to show you that there's a button down here called targets, okay, and if you select the targets, okay, this is where you put your targets in. Now, there are a lot of people who like to use target values, and there are reasons for using either, okay? It's easier to use thermal growth when the growth is straight up and the numbers are the same in the feet, but these targets values are at the coupling, and they're there to compensate for thermal growth. It's also kind of important to know that if you select one of these and change the numbers, this picture shows exactly what the target is doing. So it's kind of handy because a lot of people often say, well, what if I put a plus number in here? What if I put a minus number in here? Okay, so if I enable the targets, this little machine train manager puts an orange coupling in the middle, okay, just to let me know that I'm using thermal growth values or target values, okay? In order to shut that off, you need to shut this button off to get the orange to go away. Okay, so targets are done at the coupling, okay, but the same kind of thermal growth can be handled by touching a machine and getting to the thermal growth button here. So thermal growth, which is a compensation for thermal growth, is done underneath the feet from here, okay? And if I add a thermal growth number here, okay, it's there to watch or set up my misalignment so that it will grow into its position, okay? Notice when I turn it on, the motor turns orange, just to let us know that thermal growth hasn't been enacted, right? Now, if I don't know what the thermal growth is and I want to calculate it, we have this calculator over here. And if you know the temperature of the machine and you know the dimensions, you can select the type of material that's going to be used, okay, and the temperatures, and it will calculate for you the thermal growth. And it's a good attempt. It gets you pretty close. The real best way actually is to use the live trend feature. Okay, so I'm going to shut the thermal growth off and get out of here. Okay, so thermal growth and targets, just to know, you don't want to add them up. if you put the thermal growth in for one machine, you should put the thermal growth for another if it's known, and they will compensate. But it's a super accurate way to get to where you need to go. So these were all the questions I had for the dimensions page. Okay, there's a lot of stuff on there. If you ever have any questions, you can get in touch with us. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass this off to Tim Jackson, and he's going to move on to the measurement screen. Okay, so if Payam, if you could hand the screen control over to Tim Jackson, he's going to talk more about the measurement screen and some of what goes on there.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Tim Jackson, Heartland Industrial, and we're going to talk a little bit about measurement screen and some of the questions that we've got. The first question that I have is, what do I do to fix communication errors? The Bluetooth is not connecting or establishing communication between sensor and computer. There's multiple reasons this could happen. You're at the mercy of the person who last used that tool. They could have changed from Bluetooth to a cabled connection or selected another sensor. If you own multiple tools, maybe the wrong set of sensors were put back into the kit. So the first thing I would do is on the sensor itself, locate the serial number, which is on the bottom of that sensor. It's an 8-digit number, and either remember or write down the last 4 digits of that serial number. And after you do that, we can go ahead and pull up our sensor list here, or we can do it from the home screen. And on that sensor list, we should have a serial number that matches the bottom of that the serial number that's at the bottom of the sensor. If you do not see this Sensoline sensor or your Sensoline 5 sensor on this list, go ahead and choose whatever type of sensor you're using. If it's an OptaLine or ROTALIGN, if it's a ROTALIGN, pick Sensoline 7 sensor and pick the cabled version. If you do not see it on the list, and go ahead up to this icon here, hit that button, and it will scan for Bluetooth devices. Make sure that the sensor is turned on as well. Be patient, let it find that, and once it does find that, go ahead and connect to it, and you're going to hit your check button here at the bottom, and you should have communication from there. So that's the first question I have. The second one I have is, how do I set up the laser and sensor when it is not centered? So the first thing you want to do to get the laser and sensor set up is we want to physically look at the cap of the sensor and see where that laser is hitting. And if you see all 4 green LED lights around the front of that sensor, we know that it's coming in straight and centered. But if you do not see all 4 flashing, no worries, we can fix this from the measurement screen. So go ahead and enter in all the dimensions as you normally would do, and then go to the measurement screen, and you're going to see something like you see here on the screen now pop up, where the laser seems to be hitting inside the box on that sensor, but you see a little bit of red circle around the brighter dot. That's saying that something's going on here, that you need to do a laser adjustment. It's also going to tell you that here above there saying laser adjustment, and it pulls up a picture of the laser, and it kind of gives you an idea of what you need to do to get this centered. So before I make any changes here, I want to do a couple things. We want to go to what we call XY view, and we simply do that by touching the X and Y axis sensor, because we want to look at both sensor planes. Both the ROTALIGN and OptaLine have 2 sensor planes, and this is what separates the OptaLine and ROTALIGN from other laser systems that are available. The 2 sensor planes are optically separated at a set distance, and because of this, the accuracy of the measurement is not affected by how close or far away the laser is from the sensor. The laser and sensor can be up to 33 feet away or as close to each other as you want, as long as they're not touching. This is not the case with other systems. This allows us to do simultaneous live moves, both vertical and horizontal, with the sensors in any clock position, as well as use pass mode measurement where the shafts are uncoupled and can rotate independently of one another. So I'm going to go ahead and touch this button here so I can look at both plane 1 and plane 2. And you notice on the first one, that was an average of where it's hitting both 1 and 2. But if I open this up, I can see that on plane 1, that laser is hitting high. And on plane 2, it's hitting low. And I'm going to go ahead and now from this screen, I can make adjustments to my laser. And I want those lasers to come in straight and hit both plane 1 and plane 2 at roughly the same point. Once I do this and I have it coming in straight, I can physically grab those sensors and move them side to side or up and down and get them to close to center of both of these sensor planes as possible. You do not have to be a perfectionist and get it exactly in the middle. The only reason we want it close to the center of both of these sensor planes is as we rotate these shafts, we want to make sure that the laser doesn't come off the sensor plane as we rotate. So if you don't get exactly in the center, no worries. It does not affect the accuracy of the measurement. So that's how we get those centered. And after we get those centered, notice I come back to my measurement screen. It zooms out. It tells me laser centered, and I'm ready to take some measurements here. And I can either hit the measurement button here and start the rotation, or I can just simply rotate the shafts. Next question I got is, how do you diagnose bad measurements? Low repeatability. Are the results reliable and accurate if the quality is not 100%? And what is the significance of quality factor and standard deviation? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and take a measurement, and I'm going to intentionally make this a bad measurement by letting the bracket slip a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and measure, and as I rotate the shafts, I'm going to go ahead and let this bracket slip. And I hit my check mark here. And after I take this reading, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit my results button or my table here so I can analyze this data, because it's telling me I only have a quality of 47%. So if I want to look more detailed at what went on with that reading, I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to hit the Q button. And now notice there are 7 factors that we're looking at for quality. And each one of these factors is weighted differently. That means that some of these factors are more important than others. So as we go down here, we have rotational angle, ellipse standard deviation, environmental vibration, rotational evenness, inertia, rotational direction, rotational speed. And this is what separates the ROTALIGN from any other system out there. We have an 8th line here, which is filtered output. What that means is it gets rid of corrupted points automatically to make the results more accurate and reliable. So as you notice, I made that bracket slip, and because of that, I got bad standard deviation. So now I probably want to check some different things because of this bad standard deviation. And there's a couple different things that could cause bad standard deviation. And standard deviation is one of the more heavily weighted items on here. If you have bad standard deviation, it's going to cause more corruption than maybe not enough rotation. So what do I want to check with bad standard deviation? It can be caused by a loose bracket, the bracket bumping or rubbing into something as you rotate, loose or bad bearings, or using the wrong measurement mode. What I mean by the wrong measurement mode is you could be using sweep measurement when using a cheater bar or a strap wrench to turn the shafts and deflecting those shafts during the measurement, which we'd want to change that measurement mode so we don't have shaft deflection as part of our results. So I would go back and check these different things, make sure I'm not bumping into anything, make sure that there's nothing loose there, go back and try to take another set of readings to try to fix this standard deviation. So Another thing is, a part of this question is, are the results reliable and accurate if the quality is not 100%? One of the things that we can do here is, what if we have limited rotation for our measurement? Let's say I can only rotate, let's say, 80 degrees because there's stuff in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate the shaft here. And when I get to about 80 degrees, I'm going to go ahead and stop. This is an uncorrupted measurement. It's telling me my quality is only 53% because it didn't like the fact that I only rotated roughly 85 degrees. It's saying that it would have had a better quality factor if I took more measurement, but I cannot measure any more than 85 degrees because there's obstacles in the way that do not allow me to rotate the shaft more. At this point, I would take another set of readings, and if I can, if I get repeatable results here, I'd feel pretty confident these are good results, and I can continue on with the alignment even though my quality percentage is not 100%. So checking repeatability is a way to get by not having 100% quality factor and still getting a good alignment done. Next question that I had is, how do you change measurement modes, and what is each measurement used for? So I'm going to go back to the measurement screen. And now when I go to measure, you're going to notice that by default, I'm in IntelliSweep. And that is right here. That's the most common measurement, is the sweep measurement. Sweep is used when both shafts can be turned together while coupled, and machines have roller element bearings. If I go ahead and touch that, now I can change that measurement mode, and I can go to either IntelliPoint, Multipoint, IntelliPass. The next one down is this IntelliPoint and also Multipoint. Multipoint or IntelliPoint are used if you have hard to turn shafts and you need to use a cheater, bar, or a strap wrench to rotate those shafts. Remember, we don't want to have any shaft deflection as we're taking readings. So I would simply move that shaft to a new position, let the release that deflection on the shaft, hit the button and take a point. IntelliPoint, it'll take those points automatically when it sees that the laser is not moving across that sensor anymore. Multipoint is also used for sleeve bearing applications and also for limited rotation applications. Next one would be pass mode, which is used for uncoupled shafts that will not stop at predetermined points, as well as shafts that cannot be rotated at all. So we can use this with one shaft rotates and the other doesn't, and we'll take that coupling out. We can still get that alignment done. If you guys come across applications that you'd like to know what measurement mode would be best, you can either email your local PRUFTECHNIK representative or PRUFTECHNIK themselves. Part two of this question is, can you use different measurement modes in multi-coupling applications? First off, if you don't know what multi-coupling measurement is, it is for 3 or more machine train alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and open up one of my alignments that I had saved in my asset park. And while this is loading, we'll talk a little bit about what this is. I've got a 4 machine train here, and with the multi-coupling application, I can use Sensoline 5 OptaLign sensors or Sensoline 7 ROTALIGN sensors, as long as at least one sensor is a ROTALIGN 7 sensor. Note that you do not have to have multiple sensors to do multiple machine trains. You just have to have one set of sensors, and you would have to move them from coupling to coupling. So if I only had one set of sensors, I could start here, take a measurement, move them here, take a measurement, move down the line, take a measurement here. That's a lot of rotating in the shafts. If you have multiple sensors, I can set a set of sensors up at each one of these couplings, rotate the shaft once, and the tool's going to let me know how these machines sit relative to one another with one rotation of the shafts. And the question here is, can I use different measurement modes while doing multi-coupling applications? So I'm going to go back to my measurement screen, and you're going to notice here that I've got 3 different sensors here. And above each one of those sensors, it's telling me that I have either IntelliSweep, all 3 of them are set up for sweep right now. So if I wanted to change any of these couplings, I can simply touch the one I want to change, and I can change each measurement mode accordingly. So yes, you can use different measurement modes during multi-coupling applications. You just need to connect each one of these sensors, which one of mine already is here, and the other 2 I do not have selected yet. So yes, you can change those. You can have one doing sweep, one doing pass, and one of these doing IntelliPoint if you'd want. Next question I have is, when do I send in a tool to be checked for calibration? First off, it's recommended that the tool be checked for calibration every 2 years. There's a round sticker at the bottom of the sensor that says what the next calibration due date is. The center of the sticker is the year, and then the arrow points to the month of that year. Please note that there are 2 factory authorized service centers for calibration in North America. One is PRUFTECHNIK in Laval in Canada, and the other one is PRUFTECHNIK in Philadelphia. If you want to do some quick troubleshooting, which is not a substitute for sending in the unit to check for calibration, let's say you're questioning some of the readings that you're getting. The first thing I do is look at the lens to make sure that there's no grease, dirt, or fingerprints on it. If so, clean with a lens cleaning cloth, and then see if that's fixed your problems. The other thing you can do to make sure that the tool is reading correctly is putting it on a piece of straight pipe and take a reading by rotating that pipe. You should come up with numbers that are close to 0 in all 4 parameters. If you do not get numbers that are close to 0 in all 4 parameters, both vertical, horizontal, offset, and angles, I would recommend sending in the unit to an authorized PRUFTECHNIK repair and calibration center to have them check it for calibration. The last question that I have is, how and when do I take softfoot readings? So I'm going to answer the first part of this question, and the second part, which is how to add them to a report, I'm going to let Grant Denler answer that one here in a minute, because he's going to be getting into some reporting questions. So I'm going to answer the first part of this is, when and how do I take softfoot readings? Softfoot reading measurements should not be taken until the machines are roughed in. I've heard different opinions on how close this rough in needs to be, but I personally like to look at the
Sorry, Tim. This is Bahamasari. I think we just lost you. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I think Tim Jackson just lost communication right now. Let's jump right now to Grant Denler for the presentation on the results screen, and then if there's anything else that he wants to come back, we're going to come back to Tim. Okay? Sorry about this.
Hi, everyone. The name is Grant Denler. I'm from a company, Wildcat Technical Services, and hopefully you can all now see my screen which is showing the dimension screen with a split case pump and a green motor. My first question, I'm going to handle some questions on results, but the first question is really dealing with something slightly outside of it, and it is, how can I create a template for machine trains that are the same or similar? And I'm going to start with this because it leads into all the other questions that I had on the results. The need to create a template can really be two issues. The one being you have two pumps adjacent to each other, two motors, two machines, both identical, both having the same thermal growth, dimensions, etc. And you finish pump A and you want to go to pump B and you don't want to have to enter all the dimensions and other information. And the other application would be where you are, for example, a machine shop and you get a lot of the same pumps coming in, the same machines coming in, and you don't want to re-enter that data. Your repair facility, for example. And those two applications we have can be addressed in two different ways. So if I go here from this machine train, you'll see that I have some thermal growth entered into the pump. I'm going to go to the results. And here are the results. I've got some nice good results. I've finished pump A and I want to go to pump B. I've saved this file. I'm going to the home screen now, and you can see I've saved this file up here as web pump number 1, and I'm going to go to the asset park. And I now have the asset park, and I can see this web pump number 1. I'm finished, and I want to create a template using this file just as a temporary template, a one-off. I go down to this icon at the bottom of the screen, which is create a template, and I touch that. It says, do I want to save it? No, it's saved already. And now if I go back to the horizontal alignment screen, you will see that I have that same dimension screen minus the dimension to the receiver, because we do not know if that receiver is going to be put back in exactly the same place. So we always want to be able to enter that. And I could now proceed with this alignment. There are no measurements, but all the thermal growth, etc., you'll see is still entered. Let me go back to my home screen and go back to my asset park. And you can see here at the top, we have something called the template list. If I want to make a template of that pump number 1, web pump number 1, let me choose it. And if I go now to this button at the bottom, it is saying create a template. And I can now enter the name of that template, and I can just say web 1, and I can tick it. And now if I go to the template list, you can see web 1 here, and web 1 would now be a template, and I can open it up as often as I want, whenever I want. It will still have all the dimensions in, other than dimension to the receiver, but it'll include all the thermal growth, the measurement mode, etc. So the template will always retain all those factors that pertain to the first alignment. If you want multiple templates with different measurement modes, you will need to create one for each one. Just while I'm here, this little thing here is to tell us that's the default template. That's the template that opens up when you hit the dimension screen or select to start a new asset. All right, let me go out of here and go back to my horizontal alignment. I'm going to go and open my web pump number 1. Don't want to save it. And I'm going to come back here and sorry, go there, and I'm going to go to the results screen. So that was the first question. My second question that I had is, what is the difference between actual and actual minus specification results? This question pertains to alignments where you have thermal growth. And you can see up here in my results screen, I have thermal growth entered. You can see that is showing up here in my results screen. And up here on the right-hand side, we have a results view button. You can see it's got 3 icons. This stands for the sensor. This is for targets. This is for thermal growth at the feet. If I touch that screen, or that button, I get this screen. This is a really useful tool to have. Before it was hidden, but in the touch system, it's really right up there and up front. Actual minus specification is the default. It tells us what the alignment is looking like, taking the thermal growth that's been entered into account. And it will tell you and guide you how to make corrections so that when you are aligned, it will show the smiley face that you are in tolerances. For many people, they want to check that this alignment is actually correct and that it is sitting a certain percentage or a certain amount below a 0. If I go to the thermal growth here, I'm just going to go and show you, and I'm going to go to thermal growth, and I'm going to touch the pump and go to thermal growth, and you'll see I entered 7th hour in the inboard foot, 4th hour at the back foot. I'll go out of here and I'm going to go back to my results. And you will see here the results. And if I go to actual, or let's go to specification first, sorry. The specification screen tells me what thermal growth I've entered. And there you can see the 7th hour in the front foot, 4th hour in the back foot. This is what my alignment should look like when I'm finished the alignment when it's cold. If I now go to actual, you will see there's my actual alignment, and it's showing me I'm sitting approximately 7th hour down and 4th hour at the back. However, just to clarify something, you'll see the feet there, 0.1 and 0.2. This is telling me where the feet are sitting under actual minus specification. It's to try and guide us to say you still got some work to do if it hadn't been performed correctly. But here you can see the results at the coupling, 5.5 and 10 were actually the results that I was looking for at the coupling, where it should be sitting when I finished my alignment. So actual minus specification takes the thermal growth into account. Actual is telling us what the sensor is actually seeing. My next question I had is, why can't I save the results of a move and generate a report as my final correction? In previous systems, you could save the results of a move, but it's not good alignment procedure. We should always check that when we have tightened down the machine that we moved, that the shaft center lines didn't move. Remember, we are trying to align the shaft center lines, get them collinear under operating conditions. So we want to make sure that the alignment is good when the bolts are tightened down. And therefore, in the touch systems, they took away the ability to save the results of a move function. It is just good alignment procedure. So what will happen, I'm going to show you here, if I go into move, it's gone into move. I could move these heads, do something. I can say there's the results of my move. And when I'm finished, you can see that over here, there is no save or report. I have to go and take a measurement. It's encouraging me or telling me, go and take a measurement. So if I go back there, but I could go to the measurement screen and I'd have to take another set of readings. You can see the move function here. For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to remove that and go on to measurement. And I'll go back to here. Now, sometimes we want to keep the results of a move, and the application that I use this for is for pipe strain. And just to show you here, I've created manually a 0 misalignment. If I now go, I'm sorry, let me go back here, and I'm going to select that. It's a quick way of making a 0 misalignment. This can be very useful for checking pipe strain. I have a 0 reference. I now go live at the bottom here, and I start, say, attaching my pipe flanges, and I get a little bit of pipe strain. It stays there. And what I can now do to do this is take a screenshot of this. Don't use this to cheat, because it won't allow you to, in a sense. It'll show up in the report as a screenshot, not as found or as left. You want to see as left, you need to take a final set of readings. But I can take a screenshot by hitting the on-off button here 4 times. Just do it quickly. And a screenshot, and now that screenshot is saved and I can add it to a report. So that, I think, will cover why we can't save the results of a move function, but when we can, there is a workaround. The next question I had was, can I go back and view the as found results, and if so, how? So you might have finished your alignment or be in the middle of the alignment, and your supervisor comes along or someone comes along and says, how did you find this alignment? We had some vibration here and we want to know what was the position of the machines when you first took a reading. We can do that by going back to the measurement table. And the measurement table can always be accessed by touching the results at the coupling. So I can go back to the measurement table, and I can scroll down in my measurement table here all the way back to the top. I can now select this or touch this part of the screen, this button. It is now selected. So as found, if I go back to my results, there are my as found results. So you can always go and have a look at it again. You can take a screenshot if you want, but you can include these in the report. So not necessary to take that screenshot. You can have as found and as left in your report. Finally, how do I generate a report and add any comments? Funny enough, many people seemingly go looking for the report. It's very easy. So I am going to go back to my table, make sure that I have. I'm going to remove this move because I can't save the report. I'm going to select, this is my final report. There it is. I've got this great alignment, and I want to now generate a report. I would save it and then go to report. And here's the report. Now, some of the things we can add into the report, I can show some logos. These can be downloaded from, created and then downloaded via memory stick into the touch computer. You can see I've got a new PRUFTECHNIK logo, and I've got one of my logos here. I'm going to select my logo, and I'm going to say alignment information, yes. If I want a location, I could say boiler feed water pump. Now these don't get stored. You've got to enter this each time. Boiler house, let's say. And operator name. Let's say Fred. You don't have to put these in. It'll just ignore it. Any comments? Let's say I'm going to have pipe strain attached. I'm just going to leave it at simple pipe strain. And do I want to include the results as found there? Yes, I do. Tolerance is yes. Axial clearance is the mean distance between shaft ends. It might be important to have that on a report. The signature, it leaves a little place with the operator's name to sign the report, and images. And I then go and select the image that I want. And you can see these are all the same because I've created multiple ones. But I would just select the one. There's my pipe strain one, for example, and I would include it into my report. And then when I've entered all that information, down here, this blue button is a little printer. We would attach the memory stick into the USB port on the touch screen system and press that. And I would then and it will tell you when you've got the report into the memory stick. It doesn't tell you it's loading, but there is data saved to USB stick, and you can now go and put that into your computer. Just for the sake of showing you without wasting time, here are, hopefully, there is a report. You can see my logo up at the top here, and it included all these things, thermal growth, the tolerances. And if I go and select the other one, which had the PRUFTECHNIK logo, and here I included this screenshot of the pipe strain. And you'll see in my comments here, notes or comments, pipe strain results attached. So we can add any comments that we want in the report. And just to go back to that again, those reports you will see here, machine alignments, pipe strain. This here boiler, boiler Fred. Oh, I'm struggling to find out results this time. There should be a comments thing there, but I'd entered here, I'd entered pipe strain attached, and those are the comments. So I think that concludes all the information I had. One thing that Tim had asked me to mention was the soft foot results. I don't have either of these two reports. I didn't take it, but the soft foot will appear here at the bottom of your report as well if you selected to include soft foot results as well. And if you have the soft foot results on both machines, they will both show up there as well, guys. I think that concludes everything I've got to say. Five, you can take it back.
So that was all the questions that was brought up prior to the webinar. Hope we answered all of them. There were many questions during the webinar as well. We got to some of them quickly. However, we will send a complete document of all the questions and answers to all the attendees. Thank you once more for joining. If you still have any unanswered question, please reach out to your local representative or send us an email to support.na@pruftechnik.com. Thank you once more. Have a great day.